Hi, and welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman. Today I'm going to be sharing with you part 5 of how to scrap up your stash and how to use your scrap stash by sharing with you how to make the scrappy patterns that are in this book. Today we're going to work on California Maze, and that's the quilt behind me. Beautiful quilt, very scrappy, very easy to make. So far I have shared with you 4 other quilts that are in this pattern book, and this is my Speedy Solutions. It's part of my Speedy Solutions book set. There is the book that teaches you how to scrap up your stash. That is this small book here that teaches you how to get your scrap stash completely cut, sorted, organized, stored, and ready to use to make beautiful scraps. There are also 5 scrappy patterns in it, and then in this book, which is the corresponding book, I'm using those techniques to make the 12 scrappy patterns here. And in this series, I'm showing you how easy it is to use your scrap stash to do that. So we have done the Starlight. I've shown you a couple of different ducks in my pond, the wall quilt and the queen size quilt. I've also shared with you Marching Monkeys, and now we are at the California Maze. The California Maze pattern is available for you individually, or you'll find it in the patterns book. All right, we're at the tabletop. Here is the patterns book, and here is the individual pattern, and they're both out on my website. Now I'm going to share with you how you can actually make this simple block. The wonderful thing about this quilt is that there is only one block that's used to make the whole quilt. You're simply tilting, so the blocks are identical here, but you're simply tilting the blocks in the rows to create the beautiful maze. Here is what's required for each block, and again, every pattern that I have in this book can be made as large or as small as you want it to be by simply making more or less blocks. Totally up to you, so they're very versatile. So for each block, you're going to pull 10 2.5-inch lights, which you see here. This is where those lights are being used. You're going to pull 10 2.5-inch mediums, and I have those here, and some of my mediums are rather dark, but I'm left the really darks for the centers here. Then you're going to pull 2 5-inch darks, which I have here, and 2 5-inch lights, which are these right here. And if you remember, let me pull this over here. When I make half square triangles, and you've seen me do this many times, you put the dark or 2 of them together, whatever your color combination requests in your pattern. And then you're simply going to draw a diagonal line, and you're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of that diagonal line, cut on that line, press it open, square it up, and you'll end up with 2 half square triangle units with every pair that you make. And we only need a total of 4, and with these 2 pairs, we'll end up with 4. I have shown this California Quilts video last year, about 1.5 years ago actually, and I'm going to link that video below. It teaches you exactly how I put these half square triangles together, and you've seen me do that in all of my videos. I teach how to have that speedy method of putting your half square triangles together. So the first thing we're going to do is make the half square triangles using the lights and the darks that are 5-inch squares. And what you'll simply do is place them right sides together. And then you're going to draw one diagonal line from corner to corner. As you see there. And then you're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch on each side of that diagonal line. And let me show you that here. So here I'm sewing a scant 1/4 inch along each side of the drawn line. And you can do this in assembly line fashion with all of your blocks. I do every one of these steps in assembly line fashion. I lay the lights on top of the darks on all of the blocks that I'm making. I draw the lines on all of the blocks that I'm making. Then I sew them all at one time. Then I'll cut them all at one time and press them all at one time. It makes fast work of the half square triangles. by doing them all in assembly line fashion. All right. So now I'm going to cut the half square triangles on that drawn line. There's one. And there's the second one. So what we have, every half square triangle unit actually creates two. Now I'm going to take them to the ironing board and press them. So for our half square triangles, we cut on the diagonal line, we press them to the dark, and so now I have two half square triangle units here, and I need to square up each and every one of them to 4.5 inches for this pattern. So I'm simply using a 4.5 inch square up ruler, and I am going to line up the 45-degree line here on that diagonal line along that seam allowance. And I do have a rotating mat here. It's not necessary, but it does help you to be able to cut more easily. So we're going to go ahead and making sure that that diagonal line, that 45-degree line, stays on the seam allowance. And we're going to trim up, square up that square to 4.5 inches. There wasn't much that had to come off, but it's very important that that is removed. That will affect how your block goes together if you don't trim that away. So each and every block must be trimmed to 4.5 inches for this pattern. So that's what you're going to be creating. Whenever I have a block that wants any kind of a special unit within it, I make those first. So in this case, I'm making my half square triangle units first, squaring those up to 4.5 inches, and then I'm making my 4 patches. And with my 4 patches, I've got my lights and my mediums here, and I'll simply make 5 sets of these 4 patch units. The whole block is nothing but 4 half square triangle units and 5 4 patch units. That's all it is. And you can do this in assembly line fashion. You can have these units at your sewing machine, and maybe every night or every morning or whenever sewing works out for you and your schedule, you can sit down and get some 4 patches put together, get some half square triangles put together, and in no time at all you can have this quilt finished. Each of the blocks is squared up to 12.5 inches, and then you can use your design wall or use the floor and then just lay out your blocks, making sure that you tilt each one within the row to create this beautiful maze that you see. And the very dark half square triangles is what is helping to create that beautiful maze. In the pattern, I'm also including an inside border, which is a 1 inch. It finishes at 1 inch. It's a navy border here on this quilt. And then there is a pieced outer border, and that information is all in the pattern as well. So here's how I've laid out this quilt. This wall quilt is just 16 blocks, and that's how it's laid out. This is all in the pattern for you. And then this is the pieced units. They're just the, basically they're half square triangles that look like flying geese units and 4 patch units to create the pieced border around the outside. And a really fun quilt, very easy to make. I will link the California Maze video that I did a year ago, and it will walk you through each step as I actually sewed it. But it's something that you might want to consider, and it is just so easy to use your scrap stash to make this beautiful quilt. Next week, I'm going to be sharing with you how to make the Ohio distinctions here. This is a wonderful quilt pattern as well. It's a simple, very large 4 patch and the Ohio star. So I'll be teaching you my techniques on that. We'll be working on that quilt next. I look forward to seeing you all next week as I share another scrappy quilt pattern from my Speedy Solutions book. If you do like the content that I provide on my channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share these videos with your quilt guilds, with your quilting friends. Comment. I love to read the comments from my viewers. All of that does help my channel to grow and to get out to other viewers just like yourself. So thank you so much for doing that, and until next week, happy quilting.